Hi, I'm Brandy, a student at the American College of Healthcare Sciences, currently working on my Master's in Science and Complementary Alternative Medicine. I'm here to talk to you today about how we smell, how we process these smells, and sort of the concept of lessons in smelling. Now, the idea that we don't smell with the nose, but the brain, actually started back with Galen in the time of the gladiators. More recently, as science has developed, we've found foundational evidence for this to be true. The nose can be referred to as a detector, but it's actually the brain that does the smelling. There is a very interesting article printed in 2009 in Perfumist and Flavorist by Stephen Douthwaite. He covered this topic in detail on using the brain to smell. He often likes to ask his students if they've ever had lessons in smelling. This is a very foreign concept to pretty much probably all of us, as we sort of learn to smell as we go, as we experience things that are all around us. But there is actually a technique to smelling, especially if you're in the perfume industry or an aromatherapist. This would come in very handy. But let's start at the beginning. How do we smell? There's molecules of odor around us at all times, whether it's from food, someone walking past us who just got back from the gym, or things like the latest perfume that's out. Well, these molecules of odor are drifting on the air until they come to the nasal passages and then back up towards the olfactory bulb and olfactory nerve. There's believed to be about 10 million sensors or receptors on the olfactory nerve. This sort of transmits these chemical messages up towards the brain. First, they pass through the limbic and hypothalamus centers. Some scientists believe that the information is also relayed through the thalamus center, but not all agree in this, so for the sake of argument, we will talk about passing through the limbic center and the hypothalamic center on its way to the cerebral cortex. Well, the limbic center of the brain is responsible for our emotions and fear, and believed to have some memory development qualities to it. And the hypothalamus center has more to do with heart rate, stress, blood pressure, temperature, and things of that nature. So as you can see, odors passing through these areas could be tied into memories. For some people, smelling lavender would remind them of visiting their grandmother's house, or the smell of cloves would remind them of Christmas baking. But for another individual, lavender could remind them of a current girlfriend. Obviously, these memories are going to fluctuate greatly from person to person when it comes to different odors or scents. Well, back to how it's being relayed to the cerebral cortex. That's the part of the brain that actually does the recognition and processing of the odors. It's matching it up against everything we've ever smelled to see if it can in fact recognize that odor or if it's something completely new. It will draw on all kinds of memories for that and everything that we've been experienced to previously. Well, when it comes to smelling techniques, which if you're in the perfume industry or perhaps an aromatherapist, this would be very important to you. There are four main things you want to consider. Number one is your environment, the area in which you want to do a smelling test. You obviously don't want to pick a place that's already filled with many different odors, like a lunchroom, a kitchen after just cooking, a bathroom, a sweaty gym, anything like that. You may want to install a filter that would help to clean out the air. You would want to pick a place with lots of natural light and big windows, as UV lighting can actually help deodorize the room. When I began the smelling test in part 2 of this video, I will remove all the essential oil bottles from this area, as even having bottles of perfume or essential oils in the immediate room could affect what exactly you're smelling. The next thing after environment is personal preparation. I took great care today to not shampoo my hair with a strong scented shampoo, wear perfumes or anything like that, soaps strongly scented that would affect what you're smelling as well. So you have to take some personal attention to what you are wearing. Obviously, if you just worked out for 2 hours, this smell of the sweat would also affect how you're able to detect the odors. So after environment and personal care, you would want to pay attention to your sample preparation. And this experiment, I'm going to be using drops of essential oil. So I would want to make sure I use the same amount of drops on each little piece of blotting paper to make it equal across the board. I will be using the same exact types of paper except for one experiment where we are using different types of paper to see what difference that makes. But these are all things to take into consideration when you're preparing your samples. If you're dipping your paper into perfume, you will want to dip it in the same amount equally on each paper for the same amount of time. And just across the board, keep things as even and equal as possible so to not influence the odor in any way. So after environment, personal preparation, and sample preparation, you want to consider smelling techniques. It's been advised to hold the smelling paper or blotting paper about 1/2 inch to 1 inch from your nose, and with your lips slightly parted, because it does make a difference when the molecules pass over the taste buds. You inhale normally through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Now I'm sure not all perfumers use this exact technique, and that's okay, but if you're a beginner, this is somewhere to start. There's no need to inhale extra deeply or vigorously shake the blotting paper. The molecules will reach that cerebral cortex, don't worry. It should be just normal, sort of a rhythmic breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth with the lips slightly parted. Well, those are 4 main considerations. So if you have your room prepared, your self prepared, and your samples prepared, and now you have some smelling tips, we are ready to go to part B of this video. So for our first smelling experiment, we're going to do the sitting versus standing. I have 1 drop of clove oil, essential oil, on this blotting paper, and I'm going to first smell it sitting and then standing. I also have a volunteer that's going to smell along with me. It's good to share ideas and compare notes. I suggest you grab a little notebook or something to write with and jot down the first things that come to mind as you smell it, any emotions that spring up, just anything that's coming to mind as you smell, jot it all down in sort of a odor or perfumery or aromatherapist scent notebook. Alright, so first let's sit down, and we're first going to smell it sitting. Do you remember your smelling techniques? Alright, so let's try it sitting down. Pretty strong. Alright, so now we're going to stand up and see if we can smell any difference. Ready? Interesting. Alright, so I actually noticed that it wasn't quite as strong standing up, interestingly enough. I believe the theory behind that is you're a little bit more relaxed and kind of calm when you're sitting, so it allows you to take in the odors better. Alright, so I will see you back for experiment number 2.
Yeah.
We're back for smelling experiment number 2. For this experiment, you'll need about 4 different types. You may have more, a little bit less, but about 4 different types of materials. We have felt here, we have ribbon, I have regular printer paper, and then the much more desirable common bleach-free, dye-free, chemical-free paper for our smelling test. I have 2 drops of the same essential oil on each one of these smelling strips. I have a new volunteer here. I have not told my volunteer what type of essential oil I've used, but he has been exposed to it before, so I want to see if he can figure it out. So first we're going to test out the chemical-free, dye-free paper. Remember, it's an inch to 1.5 inches from our nose, breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth with our lips slightly parted. It's important to remember our smelling techniques, also to have a notepad ready for any concerns, memories, if you're noticing any fruity notes, sort of fatty notes, floral notes, anything that you're noticing from the smells, you want to be sure to write it down.
Tastes like hot dogs.
Hot dogs. I'm not sure how you got that, but okay. You can write that down. Alright, so we've smelled it with the more ideal paper. Now let's try this printing paper. Okay. And we're going to see if we notice any difference. Remember, about an inch away, okay? Does that not smell near as good? What did you notice? Like it smells worse?
Smell. Made me think about, I don't know what it made me think about.
It does smell a lot worse, and most likely because
Cookies.
a lot of regular cookies, that smells worse, cookies? Well, most likely it's because it's been bleached and processed and no doubt has different chemicals in it, so it definitely affected the odor a lot, and it does not smell near as good. All right, so
it just reminds me, it doesn't smell.
Okay, let's try the felt and see if that smells any different. So it's much harder to detect on the felt. Most likely it's much harder to smell it, isn't it? The felt's probably really holding on to it.
Oh, that smells, I think it smells like vinegar.
Vinegar. All right, last one, let's try on the ribbon. Okay, you can detect it more easily than the felt, but it has definitely altered the odor. And obviously there's dye in this ribbon and different chemicals and things that are all going to affect. So the point of this experiment...
Smells like throw up.
The point of this you need to write that down. It's important to document that. The point of this experiment was to see how the preparation of your smelling experiment is very important, the materials you use. And if you're an aromatherapist and you're suspicious of some adulteration to an essential oil that you purchase and you want to match that essential oil against one from a different company or a different batch, for example, Lavandula Gustifolia, you would want to make sure you're using the same exact smelling strip.
Cool.
Well, that's the end of smelling experiment number 2. I will see you back for number 3.
Bye.
We are back for experiment number 3 out of our 4 smelling experiments. We have 1 drop of Lavandula Gustifolia on our chemical-free, dye-free strips here. And this is the eyes closed versus eyes open experiment. So we're going to try smelling with the eyes open first. So it is strong, but not as strong as the essential oil we used in experiment 2, which was tea tree, which my volunteer at that time was not able to identify correctly. Hopefully he will now in the future. He has that information in his cerebral cortex to recognize it. And now you're writing down any feelings, anything new. It definitely has the typical floral notes. Again, if you're a aromatherapist or even a perfumist, you'll want to note any floral notes, fruity notes that you're detecting, along with the emotions and memories and things like that, or an oil, fatty note, just anything that you are able to detect.
It reminds me of pomegranate.
It reminds similar to pomegranate, another fruit. Well, let's try with our eyes closed and see if that makes a difference.
Whoa.
So is that a big difference for you?
Yes, it kind of like struck me.
A little more striking,
like a sighting.
A little more intense. It was exciting.
Like soda?
So the theory behind the eyes closed is that less data is going to the brain. Obviously, it's cutting down all that visual data, so you're able to concentrate more clearly on the odor, and many aromatherapists or perfumists will prefer their eyes closed when testing. So that's the end of experiment 3. I'll see you back for experiment 4. Alright, we're back for our 4th and final smelling experiment. For this experiment, you would need to put essential oil drops or dip in perfume 1 set of strips 30 minutes prior. So I have done that, and we have our 30-minute strip here where our 3 drops of orange oil have been resting
it's
for 30 minutes. It's orange oil. And then we have a newly exposed piece of paper to the orange oil. So we're going to see if we can detect any difference between 30 minutes and the recent drops of orange oil. This is called the odor fatigue test, and obviously it's pretty light on the 30-minute, and the top notes should have evaporated in that time. Definitely much, much stronger on the recent.
I think I know what it is. Isn't that the spray in the cabinet?
You're right. I use it for cleaning a lot.